Genesis 15 is a crucial chapter that marks the formal establishment of God's covenant with Abram, where God reaffirms and expands his promises to Abram regarding descendants and land. God's assurance. The chapter begins with God speaking to Abram in a vision, telling him, "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward." Despite the victories and blessings Abram has already experienced, he expresses concern to God that he remains childless, and his heir will be Eliezer of Damascus, a servant in his household. Promise of a son. God reassures Abram that his heir will not be Eliezer but a son coming from his own body. God then takes Abram outside and tells him to look at the stars, promising that his descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the sky. Abram believes God's promise, and it is counted to him as righteousness. This verse is a foundational text in understanding the concept of faith and righteousness in the Bible. The covenant ceremony. Promise of land. God then reiterates his promise to give Abram the land of Canaan as a possession. When Abram asks how he can know that he will gain possession of it, God instructs him to prepare a special covenant ceremony. The covenant ritual. Abram follows God's instructions by bringing a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. He cuts the animals in half, laying the halves opposite each other, but does not cut the birds. As the sun sets, Abram falls into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness comes over him. In this state, God reveals to Abram that his descendants will be strangers in a foreign land, Egypt, where they will be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. However, God assures Abram that he will judge the nation that enslaves them, and they will come out with great possessions. Abram himself will die in peace and be buried at a good old age. God's covenant established. After sunset, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch, symbols of God's presence, passes between the pieces of the animals. This act signifies the formal sealing of the covenant, where God unconditionally promises to give Abram's descendants the land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates. The specific nations inhabiting this land are listed: the Kenite, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. Key themes in Genesis 15. 1. Faith and righteousness. Abram's belief in God's promise is counted as righteousness, establishing the principle that faith in God's word is foundational to a right relationship with him. This theme is later echoed throughout the Bible, particularly in the New Testament. 2. Covenant relationship. Genesis 15 emphasizes the formal establishment of a covenant between God and Abram. This covenant is foundational for the rest of the biblical narrative, as it sets the stage for the development of the nation of Israel and God's redemptive plan for humanity. 3. Divine sovereignty and assurance. God's promises to Abram highlight his sovereignty and faithfulness. Despite the challenges that Abram's descendants will face, God assures Abram of the ultimate fulfillment of his promises, demonstrating that God's plans are certain and will come to pass. 4. Foreshadowing of Israel's history. The prophecy about Abram's descendants being enslaved and oppressed for 400 years foreshadows the Israelites' future in Egypt and their eventual deliverance, setting the stage for the Exodus narrative. 5. God's unconditional promise. The covenant ceremony, where God alone passes between the animal pieces, signifies that the fulfillment of the covenant depends solely on God's faithfulness, not on Abram's actions. This emphasizes the unconditional nature of God's promise to Abram and his descendants. Genesis 15 is a foundational chapter that deepens the covenant relationship between God and Abram. It highlights key biblical themes of faith, righteousness, divine promise, and the unfolding of God's redemptive plan for humanity. I hope this overview of Genesis chapter 15 has been a blessing to you. If it has, please consider subscribing to this channel, liking the video to help others find it, and sharing it with someone to spread God's word. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. God bless you.